Welcome to the call, ladies and G's, all freedom fighters. I'm your host, Johnny Monquest Sherrod, and it's always a pleasure to be hosting these calls every Wednesday. And today we're going to start off a little different. I was reading this book today by Yogananda, The Law of Success. I'm just going to share with you guys what I was reading. You can't control your destiny. Mind is the creator of everything. You should therefore guide it to create only good. If you cling to a certain thought with dynamic will, it finally assumes a tangible outward form. When you are able to employ your will always for constructive purposes, you can become the controller of your destiny. You can't control your destiny. And with that being said, for those of you guys that are just joining us on the call today, I want to let you guys know that every week these calls are full of stories, strategies, and secrets of the super wealthy. And I want to welcome you guys to Obsessed with Success, call number 54. Right now I'm going to step out of the way, move out of the way of greatness, and introduce you guys to a master marketer, a phenomenal leader, the greatest mindset of trainer of all times. If you ask me, this guy is the wizard, self-esteem development expert himself, Mr. Haziq Ali. Are you on the line, sir?
I am, Mr. Sherrod. Thank you very much for that amazing intro, as always. And welcome, millionaires, to teleseminar number 54 of Obsessed with Success. I hope that everyone has this scheduled in their phone by now. If not, then just take a few minutes to do it right now as I just run through the intro material. Again, this is every Wednesday at 5:15 Eastern Time. If you're on the West Coast, then it's 2:15. And it is a great way to share value with your friends and family who may not understand personal development yet, who may not understand how vital this new form of the really only true form of education there is, right? Know thyself. So that's what this is, personal development, personal growth, self-discovery. Well, my name is Haziq Ali. I welcome and honor you for being here. My Instagram is Haziq Ali. My Facebook page is Haziq Ali. Never hesitate to ask if there's some kind of way I can help you out in some way. Today we're going to be talking about fear. So if there's anybody that you know that you've been having these same kinds of conversations with, I know that everybody on this call is a leader. I know that all of you guys have tribes in your own right. How do I know that? Because of the way you choose to invest your time. A normal, average, mediocre person would never be on the line right now, especially since no one is hammering you with advertisements, et cetera, so forth. So you're obviously here because you have a hunger for more. You're in touch with that divinity inside yourself that just wants to be bigger, stronger, higher, and faster. That divinity inside yourself that understands that you can only grow or die. And I honor that. I think in the Indian culture, they refer to it as namaste, where it's like the God in me salutes the God in you. And that's how I feel about it. So I really honor you guys for being here, and we're about to get into it. This is going to be call number 54, and that means we've been doing this for about a year and 2 weeks. So enough preamble. Hopefully I've given you a chance to text message some of your friends and family and make sure that they're in place, because you do not want to miss this. I hope you have your pen and pad out, because we're going to be discussing some keys to getting rid of fear. I don't know how many of you are familiar with a book by Napoleon Hill called Outwitting the Devil. I had come across this book about maybe a year ago. I think it just now got released in 2012 or 2013. I first bumped into it about a year ago, and I have so many books to knock out, and then I've got, so many that I'll be reading at once. I'll always be reading like a couple books at once. Everybody that knows me knows that. Well, when I got back involved with this particular book, I guess when I had first picked it up, I wasn't quite ready for it. When I picked this thing back up, it was just mind-blowing. They say when a student is ready, the teacher will appear. Well, this book breaks down through the metaphor or the parable of a conversation between Napoleon Hill and the devil. So many things about society. An interesting thing about this book is that they didn't want him to release it at first. His wife was deathly afraid that he would get, banished from his place of businesses, that she would be banished from her because she worked for a really famous theologian at that time. And some of the sort of wording that he uses, it literally gives you chill bumps when you're reading it or when you're listening to the audiobook. So I say all of that to say that in this book, the devil talks about how one of his main tools and the way he's able to use everybody from pastors and preachers to school teachers to parents is fear. Understand this clearly. Nothing that deals with fear is from, what I call God, what you guys may, call all number of things, right? But that good side of the atom, that positive side of the atom, the fear isn't coming from that side. It's coming from the negative side. And then just listen to what the word negative means, how it has all these different meanings, but at its most basic root, even the symbol for it is what? A subtraction sign. So if you can only grow or die, what does being negative do for you? It takes away. It takes away from your life, right? So on this call, what we're going to discuss are at least 3 different keys to learning how to expect success. Because whether you're talking about faith or you're talking about fear, they're both just using imagination. Some would say they're both hope, right? It's just one is hoping for the positive thing to happen, and the other one is hoping and visualizing the negative thing happening. How simple is that, right? All right, so first of all, what is fear? I hear you guys in the background, you're saying false evidence appearing real, right? Or fantasies, fantasy expectations appearing real, right? But no, that's an acronym. That's not the definition of fear. The definition of fear is the anticipation of pain. You might want to write that down. The definition of fear is the anticipation of pain. So how you want to kind of look at fear is almost like this 2-year-old that is just deathly afraid. There was a time, and this is wired into our DNA, just like the birds know how to fly south for the winter, right? There was this time that fear was a self-defense mechanism. It was a healthy fear for you to see, a saber-toothed tiger or something bounding towards you, or you come over the hill and then you see it and you duck back down real quickly because, good grief, if he sees you, you're lunch, right? We aren't in that time period anymore. We're now in a time period where fear is to be acknowledged, but it is not to control you. Would you let a 2-year-old control your life? Would you let a 2-year-old make all of the decisions that guide the actions that you take every day? Well, this is what a lot of us do when we allow our fear to run our lives. There's a Spanish conquistador named Cortez. His last name was Cortez. A lot of people attribute this story to Napoleon, but it was actually Cortez back in the 1500s. And what Cortez did to take away all just ability to retreat is when he landed on the shores of this land that he wanted to conquer, he burned the boats. He burned the boats. Let me tell you, in 2015 language, I've rented boats, I've bought boats, all with the intentions of burning them, right? I've taken out loans. I remember to start my first, I could go into story after story, but the whole point is, luckily for you, millionaires, you losing does not mean death. You refusing to do it could kill off pieces of your soul, though, so be careful. You doing it doesn't mean death. You not doing it might. So just real quick, here's formula number 1 that we're going to give to allow you to begin to beat fear and conquer fear whenever you see it creeping up. Because we all deal with it, and courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is feeling the fear and doing it anyway. So here's an exercise. First, I want you to realize we're not talking about things that you're scared of. We're talking about things that you're scared to do. There's a difference. We aren't talking about snakes or, one of my good friends has this weird fear of clowns. Weird to me. But then it's so funny about that I got one friend who's scared of horses. And it's so funny how that works because after he pointed it out to me, it's like, whoa, they do look kind of freaky, like they do look kind of like, when you look at a horse and you just see his, the way his jaws are and like you look him in the eyes, he looks kind of crazy. I don't know how many of you have seen a horse up front, but they are I see how somebody could be scared of them. And it's the same thing with clowns. They do look kind of odd. But the whole point is it's funny how things like that are contagious. Enthusiasm is contagious, and yes, fear is contagious. So watch who you hang around. Watch who you allow to kind of alter your expectations and alter your belief system and alter the things you perceive. But here's a quick little formula. I want to blank, and I scare myself by imagining blank. This is going to help you kill off the fear. So let's watch this. I want to ask my boss for a raise. I scare myself by imagining he'll be angry I asked. Is that realistic? I mean, really? Is he really going to get angry? And then what is he going to do? Pull out a revolver out of his desk maybe? Come on. Exaggerate much? Or maybe I want to ask my dream girl for a date. I scare myself by imagining she'll say no and I'll feel embarrassed, and then I'll just fall out and die, right? Is that what will happen? You'll feel the embarrassment, and then what? You always want to ask yourself, and then what, after the second part of that formula. So I want to, and I scare myself by imagining, but then what? Okay, I want to get a babysitter so that me and my lady can go out into town, but I scare myself by imagining some terrible event will happen. Or I want to talk to somebody about, my new business opportunity, but I scare myself by imagining they'll think I only want to make money off of them. Who's creating the fear? Who's really creating the fear? And as long as you're going to imagine something, why are you choosing to imagine the worst possible thing? My grandma is scared to fly. And, she'll take an Amtrak anywhere. And there was a time that was really cool. But now Amtrak is almost like a luxury. Right? Like Amtrak, I don't know how many of you have taken a train ride in the past few, but it's like, now, me and my brothers got to kind of pitch in when she wants to travel sometimes because she can't afford to take the train everywhere. And so sometimes when you're dealing with this, you might want to ask them some things, right? Like, they'll have their knuckles all white. They're sitting beside you just gripping the armrest. And since all they're doing is using their imagination to picture the worst possible outcome, maybe you start asking them certain questions like, Grandma, so why are you traveling right now? Oh, I want to go down there and see such and such. We're going to go to Disney World. Okay, and then what's going to happen at Disney World? Oh, and then tell me about the emotions they're going to feel. Oh, they're going to be so happy. All my granddaughter wants to do is go see Mickey Mouse, et cetera, so forth. Next thing you know, they start relaxing. Next thing you know, that clenched look on their face turns into a smile. Next thing you know, that dark countenance begins to glow with this inner light because now they're using that same creative imagination to picture the good things. This is all you have to do when you're up against fear. But let's just say that it doesn't happen the way that we're talking about. Millionaires. There's no such thing as failure. There's only feedback. That would be another thing to write down. There's no such thing as failure. There's only feedback. But when you're getting this feedback, when something doesn't go the way you wanted it to do, something that you were scared to do, and then you manifest that negative outcome, there are 3 different ways that you can handle this. Now, one is quitting. Sometimes in my live trainings, I run through this exercise where maybe, one person will have on the blindfold, and then there'll be another volunteer who yells out when the person is walking off course, right? So then, maybe every time they start walking off course, the volunteer says, off course, off course, off course, off course. And if I'm the one in the blindfold, I've got a bunch of different ways I can respond that mirror the responses that we see out here in real life. Okay, so let's just say the volunteer is going off course, off course, off course, and then I take off the blindfold and just slam it to the ground. Like, man, this is too hard. You know what I mean? This is, you know what? I quit. You're always criticizing me. I can't take this. How many of us respond to the feedback by quitting? How many of us decide that it's much too hard and then we just quit? Well, that's not a good way to deal with the feedback. Well, there's another way that you can do it, right? Another way to do it is off course, off course, off course, and then I take off my blindfold, I slam it to the ground like, all you do is complain. Why can't I ever hear anything positive? But the whole thing is that if I respond by quitting or I respond by getting angry, who's really being hurt here? If I respond by quitting, it's because I don't realize that the feedback is there to help me. If I respond by getting angry, all I'm going to do is push away the people that want to give me the feedback. But there's a third way that people respond to the feedback that they don't enjoy. That third way is by ignoring. So maybe they start going off course, off course, off course, and instead I put my fingers in my ears like, la, 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 I can't hear you, you know? How many of us respond to negative, what we term and deem to be negative feedback by just ignoring it? And again, how does that help us? Does it help us? But you would get rid of fear if you began to bring in more of the feedback so that you know how to do it better the next time. You only fear the unknown because right there in your DNA, just like it is in the birds where they don't have to ask somebody for directions to fly south for the winter, this is what the birds' parents did. This is what the birds' grandparents did. This is what they've been doing all since their ancestors first appeared. So they already know what to do. Well, that's you. When you come up against something unknown, you already know what to do, and that is duck off from it. Find a way to hide yourself away from it. So here's formula number 2 that you can use to get rid of fear. Ask for feedback. If you don't get anything else from this call, when I was studying for this call, it changed my life because I'm going to start doing this with my employees. I'm going to start doing this with team members that I have in different projects. I'm going to start doing this in relationships. You can do this if you're talking to your manager at a job. You can do this if you're talking to anybody who you affect with your influence or anybody that affects you with theirs. So here it goes. Write this down if you don't write down anything else that we've talked about. Hey, so on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the quality of blank during the last blank? So on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate last week's call during the last, hour that we spent on it? And if you get an answer that's anything less than a 10, you ask the second follow-up question. What would make it a 10? Again, you can ask your girlfriend or boyfriend this, your wife or husband. You can ask anybody this question, and it's going to change your life. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the quality of our relationship the past week? And make it a ritual. So every Friday you're asking your lady that. Or every Friday you're asking your man that. How would you rate the quality of our relationship this past week? Really? What would have made it a 10? Oh, well, you did such and such. I remember when you did such and such. This would have helped. This right here would help. What you got to understand is that nobody wants to give feedback. They think you're not going to receive it. And they don't want to be critical. They don't want to hurt your feelings. They don't want to risk stepping on your toes. Everybody wants to avoid conflict at all costs. So to fight all of that and make sure that you can access your maximum potential, you want to do something really simple. You want to ask for the feedback. And then you got to look for patterns. Because let's be honest, a famous, I forget who first gave this example, like a famous comedian. If one person says you're a horse, they're crazy. If 3 people say you're a horse, there's a conspiracy. But if 10 people say you're a horse, it's time to buy a saddle. You want to look for the patterns. Don't be like some of the unsuccessful people that you see every day. Some of them may even be in your family. I hope they're not in the mirror that would rather be right than be rich. This is a game of constant improvement. I think it was Oliver Cromwell who said, "He who stops being better stops being good." Millionaires, you can only grow or die. There's only growing or there's dying. I hope that makes sense. Let's look at baseball. When you're talking about baseball, to make it into the league, you have to have like a 250 batting average makes you average in baseball. If you have a 250 batting average and then you're also a good outfielder, you're going to be a pretty decent baseball player. You're going to have a pretty decent career. But if you have a 300 batting average, you're a superstar. We're talking about multi-million-dollar contracts. We're talking about the whole sport knows your name. They're looking out for you when you come into the ballpark. When you're dusting off your cleats, the whole stadium is standing at the ready. But what's the difference between a 250 and a 300 batting average? It's one more hit every 20 at-bats. One more hit every 20 at-bats. Millionaires, we're talking about the margin of greatness is many times much smaller than we give it credit for. There's just a small difference between good and great, but it makes all the difference in your life. And most of it is a mental thing with you just saying, this is the one I'm choosing to be. The minute you can make your why bigger than your ego, you are on your way to wealth. You can be good by accident. You can definitely be mediocre and just fall into it. But you have to be great on purpose. The man on top of the mountain did not fall there. Vince Lombardi said that, right? So that was number 9, the margin of greatness. Make sure that you are paying attention to what it takes to master what it is you're doing. Because mastery is about range. And range is about nuances. But most people won't stick to what they do long enough to notice the little differences that can make all the difference in their life. Don't be one of those people. That's how you get rid of fear. You don't be one of those people who can't even tell the difference between when they're doing a good thing and when they're doing a great thing. And believe me, I'm talking to myself as well. And so with that said, the next one would be study the legends. If you want to get rid of fear, study the legends. There's a guy named Hugh Pinero. He started XM satellite radio. This guy went for 2 years recruiting investors for XM. Think about that. How long would you have went? Everybody's telling him he's crazy. Even the ones that think he's not crazy, that this could be the wave of the future, they ain't trying to risk their money on it. So he went to DirecTV. He went to General Motors. He went to Hughes Electronics. He went to Clear Channel, et cetera, et cetera. Right when we're down to the moment of truth, every single one of them threatened to back out if he didn't raise the full amount he needed. So you're up to June 4th, June 5th. They're all threatening to back out if he doesn't get the rest of the money that would make the deal complete. So through just sheer diplomacy, he's able to pull it off. June 6th, 2001, he has the full $225 million. He got it by midnight. So, less than a year later, he's due to launch a $200 million satellite. Then it gets aborted 11 seconds before liftoff. Why? Because an engineer misread some message. So he already was about to get aborted. All these investors that he went through blood, sweat, and tears to try and gather, they already were about to leave him. So then he's about to launch this $200 million satellite, and because an engineer misread some panel there at the rocket launch site, they put it off. He has to wait another 2 months for the next available date. So now the debut is scheduled for September 12th, 2001. What happens? The day before, some terrorists crash planes into the towers. So now everybody wants him to. So he had to get rid of some commercial that had a rap artist rocketing past the World Trade Center towers. He had to just scrap that commercial completely for obvious reasons. All his investors are telling him to wait another year. He stuck to his guns. He made it happen in the next 2 weeks. Now they dominate the market. He got rid of fear through persistence. I hope that makes sense to everybody. Okay, this is one of my favorite stories, though. How many of you guys know who this guy is? Okay, in 1832, he lost his job. He loved this job, best job he ever had, then he lost it. Later that same year, he decides to run for the legislature. He gets defeated, and I mean he gets defeated soundly, like he gets whipped. 1833, he starts a business, and it fails. It fails in like 4 months. 1834, he gets elected to the legislature, so it's a small victory. 1835, his sweetheart. Their letters were so sweet you'd get a toothache, and she dies. So in 1836, he has a nervous breakdown. In 1838, he runs for Speaker of the House. He gets defeated. In 1843, he wanted to get a nomination for Congress. He got defeated again. In 1846, through persistence, he got elected to Congress. In 1848, though, he lost the renomination. In 1849, he got rejected for land officer because he had a heart for service. He was like, let me do something, but he got rejected. 1854, 5 years later, he gets defeated for Senate. 1856, defeated for the nomination for vice president. People are telling him, why do you even keep on? This is not for you. 1858, he's again defeated for the Senate. 1860, he was elected president. Many say he was the greatest president we ever had. Of course, I'm talking about Abraham Lincoln. It is persistence that gets rid of fear. This was call number 54. I hope that was of service to somebody. If you have any questions or feedback or criticisms, you can push *6 to unmute yourself and let us know where you're from and how many people you have on the call. Does anybody have anything? All right, well, thank you very much for being here.
Hello?
Yes.
Hi, Haziq. This is Deanna. I'm from Bowie, Maryland, and I put 4 people on the call.
Hey, Deanna. I'm glad you're here.
Thanks. I just had one comment about not letting your ego, not letting your ego affect you from being great. I really needed to hear that because there's times in the past where, I feel like I've let my ego get the best of me. And, we all need to work on something. So it was good hearing that, and I continue to work on it. So thank you.
Man, I'm really I really honor your honesty for sharing that with us, Deanna. So in what ways did your ego? In what ways have you seen your ego affect your performance? I'm just curious.
Sometimes I don't like getting out of my comfort zone, or sometimes I feel like because I study so much for the business and I take, multiple notes and I go to, conferences and stuff like that, I replay back everything in my head, and sometimes I think like a certain person's way is the best way, and I don't want to hear anything else, or I don't take advice from anybody else because I feel like maybe I've heard from the leaders or who I consider the leaders. But it's all like you always say, like Shaq always says, you must remain coachable at all times, whether you hear, something from a top earner or you hear something from somebody that's lower than that or downline, or, someone that's still on your team but not quite there yet. It's always good to get advice all around. So
that's really powerful. Like one of my favorite quotes is that, and thank you for sharing that, Deanna, from Bowie, Maryland. One of my favorite quotes is that a wise man can learn from even a fool, while a fool can't even learn from a wise man. I always remind people that the difference between our will and God's will is that our will is what we do versus God's will is what we become. And God doesn't care what he uses to make us become what we need to be to serve and fulfill his purpose to the highest level. What we got to remember is that your life can be one of two things, either an example or a warning. So if we're going to really fulfill our true purpose, then we've got to realize that God will never fail us, but there will be a retest. If you don't pass the test the first time, that same test is going to happen again until you finally learn the lesson. So I really appreciate you sharing that, Deanna. Does anybody else have anything? You can push *6 and unmute yourself.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
How you doing, Haziq? My name is Haziq. I live in South Jersey by way of New York City.
Okay.
Truly appreciate you and all that you do. I have a fear of being wasted talent. And it wasn't really tied into this call, but definitely it got pointers from everything that you said. I'm well educated. I'm part of several businesses. I've now gone on a full year of not having a 9-to-5 paycheck, and fully engrossed in my endeavors. But I'm just now becoming fully committed. But I was a person who was set out very early on a leadership path. Had businesses in my teenage years, but life kind of got in the way, and I started getting regular jobs just to make sure I had security for my family, and now I've just gotten back on my entrepreneurial ways. But conquering fear is a huge thing, and I'm just now, at the age of 36, being able to conquer some of those things. But I don't know if that touches anything. I just wanted to speak, and if anybody else was going through that, maybe they know that, they just have to keep persevering, and all those key things that you spoke of today can help. So
indeed.
Appreciate
so tell me, what are some ways that you feel like fear kind of has? What are some ways that you? So when you say that you have this fear of wasted talent, what is it that you want to do with your talent that you were kind of scared of using it for? Or can you elaborate a little bit? Because I thought that was really interesting.
Without, I guess the part of getting over the wasted, being wasted talent was fully committing to being an entrepreneur again. And I mean, anybody who's made that leap knows that it's many fears attributed to it. So that was huge in and of itself. But I just expect a lot from myself, and I wasn't seeing that for a while. Even the great motivator of children, having a family, knowing that I always have to provide. that's still, I still wasn't able to make the leap back into entrepreneurship. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
I'm the type of man that will go flip burgers if I need to, you know. But I always expect more of myself, and it's just tough, man. You know, I have several avenues of revenue coming in, but they're small, and I'm still trying to rub nickels together, you know, to make it. But I know overall I will, and I know I'm learning more that it's not just about me, but how my kids perceive me, how my family does, and overall I have to give back still, you know. So it's just a lot of things, man, that is just fearful in this journey of business and life, and it's huge to be able to conquer those things.
Well, yes, and I really appreciate you sharing that with us. That was an extremely powerful point, and what I want you to know about when you feel those types of emotions, or what's been true for me in my experience, is that is a huge signal for you. That's a huge feedback beep, if we were referring to that radar kind of thing from the trainings, because you know that you've got something bigger in you. Mm-hmm. Now, it would be really scary if you didn't. That's what would be really scary. But the fact that you realize you have this immense potential that you aren't utilizing, it's all about making your why bigger than your ego. Like Deanna was just now talking about from Bowie, Maryland. Because you're based where? What was your name again?
Atu.
Akil? But I want you to understand.
ATO.
Oh, Atu.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good to meet you, Atu. What you really want to understand is that when we talk about making your why bigger than your ego, you summed it up perfectly when you just now said you had to realize that it's not about you. This is not about you. So once we start realizing that we are here to fulfill a purpose, if you're here to do something and you know that you're performing it for something that's bigger than you, how are they going to let you fail? That's like, it's almost like illogical to picture that. Yeah. But your why has to guide you. Like one of my favorite examples of it is if you talk about how, because a lot of people think that their why can be this big old pile of money. And one of my friends, Justin Owens, he has this example where he breaks down how there might be two buildings that are there might be two building skyscrapers, and then you put a board across them. And if you ask people who wants to walk across this board for $50,000, people look down off that thing. They're like, man, not me.
I remember that analogy from the previous
call. But the minute you set one of those buildings on fire, the minute you put a loved one inside one of those buildings, not a single person on this call wouldn't go across that board.
Yes, sir.
But a lot of times what we're doing is using our imaginations to let us pretend that we're comfy and let us pretend that we're okay. That's one of the devil's. Those are. If you believe that there's such a thing as this negative force that's here to keep us in place, call it resistance, call it the devil, call it negativity, whatever you want to call it, stagnation.
Right.
Man, it only works in two different ways: fear and comfort zone. If you can just trick yourself into thinking that you're maintaining and not realizing that that's not how nature works, you can only grow or die. And if you can trick yourself into thinking that it's scarier to move than it is to stay in place, oh, man, the devil got you. So it's like I really, really appreciate that. That was a really powerful comment. The fact that you're scared of wasting your talent tells you with no uncertain, because we are not given visions we don't have the ability to manifest. It's against the rules. It's against the rules. So, man, I'm really glad you were here, Atu. Good to meet you. Does anybody else have anything?
Hey, Haziq, what's going on?
Everything is well. Who's this?
It's Jamal from Atlanta.
Okay, Jamal, how you doing?
I'm amazing, man. I just want to say I appreciate you for doing these calls. I know it takes a lot of time, you know what I'm saying, and time is the only commodity that we can't get back. I just want to say I appreciate you.
Oh, man, I thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, that's it. I'm out.
Okay, does anybody else have anything you could push? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is LaToya from Miami.
Hi, LaToya.
Hey, how are you? I just wanted to let everyone know that today, while I was looking for some other stuff, I ran across a deal on Groupon for the free audio books for 2 months, and I did see some of those books that you had discussed in the previous call, those Carnegie books and Napoleon Hill, so I'm going to try to check out the Outwitting the Devil one as well.
Oh, thank you for sharing that, LaToya. That's awesome.
Appreciate your time and your energy as well.
I appreciate you for being here, LaToya. Please, everybody, just set your calendar so you can be here and just share it. That's how you're helping us to share this vision of global peace, because at the end of the day, I hope everybody understands. I talked about it, ad nauseum, like I'm always just harping on this same point, that we can't achieve global peace until people are able to act in a way that's fitting with their purpose. The only reason we have all this crime, sin, depression, pill popping, alcoholism, et cetera, so forth, is because people are not living in their true purpose. But does anybody else have anything before we get out of here?
Yeah, Haziq, this is Danny.
Hey, how you doing, Danny?
I'm doing well.
Where you calling in from?
Davenport, Iowa. Invited 34 to the call. Not sure how many of them are on, but 34 invites went out. And I just want to thank you for your leadership. For like not letting me fall lax. You know what I mean? It's like, because you see something in me that I didn't, right? And you pull that out of me, even though it makes me uncomfortable. I feel good afterwards, right? So I just want to thank you for always challenging, and like you said, it's all about accountability. If you say you want to do something, then without that accountability, it's not, a true leader won't let somebody stay where they're at. And I appreciate you for that. So again, just like everybody else, man, just mad respect for you. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for these calls. Thank you for your friendship. And we just love you and appreciate you, brother.
Man, I love you too, man. I love all of you guys, and that really touches me. Like, thank you very much. Like, sometimes I know that I'm still a work in progress as well, and I really appreciate that. I even have to share the same thing with my friends, because I expect the same thing that I give. It's like I want the feedback. And I love the fact that when we get to the highest vibration that we can get to, we can do that without fear of bruising each other's egos, because we've made our egos so small that we can begin to live in God's purpose, in God's light. So, I really appreciate that, Danny. And, okay, we got time for one more. Does anybody have anything? *6 will unmute yourself, and then we can get out of here.
Haziq, it's Ivory.
It's who?
Ivory.
Hi, Ivory. How are you?
Do you really know who I am? Tell me how you know.
No, but I like your,
okay.
I like how, yay, Ivory. Where are you from?
I am from North Carolina. I just seen you this weekend, and I asked you for something.
Yeah, I remember you.
Yeah, it's me. I just had to say something. I was sitting here listening to everybody, and I'm like all teary-eyed, and I'm like, okay, I got to say something now. I just got off of work and been listening since I left. But I love these calls. I appreciate everything. And, I mean, to me it really was like meeting a celebrity. Like I was meeting Mary J. Blige or, Donald Trump. And so I hope one day I get to be in that position and somebody look at me the same way. Sorry about the background noise. I'm actually at a friend's house.
Okay. Well, I'm very touched by that, Ivory. Thank you so much. That's very humbling. And I'm going to tell you something. We're all, growing each other with this stuff. It's like we're all here on the same exact path. And I don't believe in chance or coincidence or happenstance. So just the fact that you're here, you're helping us all to continue to light each other's candles. I think I said on a call last week that if one candle stands by itself, the wind can blow it out. But when there are enough of us and we're all lit, the wind does nothing but spread the fire further. And so I really, really appreciate you guys. I can't say it enough. Everybody, please set the alarm for next Wednesday at 5:15. This is a whole millionaire-minded mantra that we believe it's about changing your friends or changing your friends, right?
Right.
Not everybody will be rich, but anybody can be rich, and it is my humble assertion that if we don't become financially free, it is impossible for us to live to our maximum capacity. You cannot live to your maximum capacity if you are selfishly depending on family, friends, strangers, and the government to eat every day. You cannot live to your maximum capacity until family, friends, strangers, and the government are depending on you. When you become financially free, that's when you can build schools. That's when you can build hospitals. That's when you can snap your fingers and serve people when you're not even there with your physical presence. The biggest fear of baby boomers is no longer death. The biggest fear of the baby boomer generation is that they will outlive their savings, and it's a healthy fear because the fastest growing group on the planet is the Centaurians. That's the people that are 100 years and older. Our health and medicine is getting better. Our environment and technology is getting better. And what we've got to do is dedicate a portion of our lives every single day to serving. A lot of us are thinking of business ideas all week. It's just that we call them complaints. And with a simple shift in your mindset, you can serve the world with some of these complaints that you have. Because guess what? You don't complain unless you see an alternative option. And if you see an alternative option, that is God giving you some insight into how you can change the world. So my name is Haziq Ali. I appreciate all you guys for being here, and I'll see you next Wednesday. Thanks a lot, y'all. Love you all.